Hey, you guys, welcome to the broadcast Sports and Shopping with Doug Plank, former Chicago Bears, and myself, Megan, former Miss Texas. And we're so excited today because we have Vic Ferrari with us.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Doug. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Bears. It's so exciting to have you here, and you have such amazing stories. I can't wait to hear about them all. Ferrari with us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll try to provide whatever you guys would like to hear.
No, well, you have an amazing story. You were NYPD cop and then investigator, and you now write books and you talk about the humor of it all. And I think that's so amazing. And you and Doug have so much in common with like how Doug has great humorous stories about working with the NFL. Same with you. So welcome to our broadcast. Doug, it's good to see you as always.
Thank you, Megan. And likewise.
Yeah, it's always good to see you. So yeah, Vic, tell us your story.
My story is I'm a Bronx kid. I grew up in a lower middle class family in the Bronx. From the age of 5 years old, my mom used to take me to the movie theater as a little boy. Around the corner from the movie theater was a police station. So when she was taking me to see Herbie the Love Bug Part 3, I would run up to the police cars, look in the windows, I would bother the cops walking around the station house. Every little boy is drawn to that gun. Even at 5, I said, I want one of those. By age of 10, my friends and I used to sneak into the local post office and steal FBI wanted posters off the wall. And we'd go around the neighborhood with wanted posters of some guy wanted for a bank robbery in Louisiana. And we'd walk into the local deli and there'd be some poor telephone company worker getting a sandwich. And we're like, this could be him. So I knew what I wanted to do as a kid. I'm growing up seeing the French Connection, the Rockford Files. I wanted to be in law enforcement. By 20, I passed the exam, and by 21, I was in the New York City Police Academy, had a wonderful 20-year career, worked as a patrolman. I worked in a lot of specialized units. I worked in narcotics for a while, and my last 10, I was a detective in the NYPD's auto crime division. So anything with chop shops, stealing cars, exporting vehicles out of the country, and a lot of mafia cases. I retired from the NYPD and I got into writing a series of books that are all a behind the scenes look at the New York City Police Department.
That's so incredible. Doug, I know you have a whole bunch of questions.
Well, I'll just say this. I mean, as exciting as Vic's life was, without him having put this down into writing, nobody else would know about it, maybe except your wife or your kids. And, I kind of felt the same way over the last couple of years. There's so many things that I saw, experienced that people would never have seen on television or heard on radio. There's so much more behind our occupations than what it appears, on face value. There's so many other situations you get yourself into, good and bad, that really, make the job so memorable. And I'm sure, Vic, that you just ripped off, 4 or 5 right there that, I never thought would have even existed in your line of work. But it happens, and you have to deal with it. And is it in your manual, what to say, what to do, how to handle it? No, you have to think about on your quick. You're just impromptu, just trying to figure this thing out. The same thing, with regard to football. I can tell you so many things happened on that field where I was running into bigger players than I was, by 50 or 100 pounds. And I'm thinking, how am I going to hit this guy? He's going to kill me, and there's nothing in the playbook about hitting a 300-pound player. Go around him if you have to, don't run into him because you're going to get hurt. And, things like that really just, that are just thrust upon you, and you have to make a quick decision, just like you had to so many times. And hopefully it's going to turn out for the better.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's been so many times where you're going to go arrest somebody. And like you said, they're twice the size of you. And some of these guys, they just get out of the can and they've been doing push-ups and sit-ups for years, and they're jacked and they're walking. I remember when I worked in narcotics, we'd be up in Harlem and there'd be guys just doing pull-ups off the dome. This is going to be a fight, you know, and you either try to con them or sweet talk them into handcuffs, you know what I mean? Or wait until the cavalry arrives before you make your move, because you can get really hurt. I mean, yeah, you got a gun, yeah, you got a nightstick, mace or whatever. But the reality is, and you know this, if someone's physically stronger than you, or if they want it more than you do, they're going to get the upper hand fairly quickly. So
Yes.
you try to use your head sometimes and leverage.
That's amazing. I never really thought of it that way, because I always think of, you know, especially the NYPD, just like LAPD, you have ultimate control. So I never even thought that anybody would be intimidated by anybody.
Well, because you're a productive member of society. You know what I mean? Like you live your life a certain way that you really don't have to interact with the police. You know what I mean? It's like the same as now. If I get pulled over, I'm a nervous wreck, and I was a cop for 20 years. I pull over, I shut the car off, I roll down the windows, I got my arms out the window, because I know how a cop thinks. You know what I mean? But at the same time, my heart's going 100 miles an hour, and I didn't do really anything wrong. So I get that, you know, but there are people out there that deal with the police all the time in a negative way.
Well, you know what? My favorite cop story is when I first moved to Beverly Hills. I was not familiar at all with the roads. And it was at Christmas time, and the lights were so incredible. They were so incredible, like the Beverly Hills, like Christmas lights, right? So I'm driving down the road to get to my house, and I take a left on a one-way, the wrong way. And so I'm driving, thinking nothing of it. I'm driving down there, looking at all these lights, and I'm like, oh, they're so beautiful. And all of a sudden, all these people are looking at me like, what is this girl doing? This cop pulls me over, and he looks at me and he goes, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I guess I'm sorry. I'm looking at the lights. Was I speeding? And he's like, you're going on a one-way the wrong way. And I started to laugh, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And he's like, obviously there's nothing wrong with you other than you're blonde. Oh, that was really embarrassing. I still get a bad time for that one.
Vic, I see you have a poster on the wall there with it looks like the Raiders. Maybe it might be the Oakland Raiders. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
When we played that team, you have to understand that every game was different. The rules are not the same rules from one week to the other. We would have scouting reports on the officials, and in terms of what they would call. There were officials that would come out there, and unless somebody was crawling off the field, everything was okay with him. Any hits, any clotheslines, you know, catching guys by the throat, you know, picking them up off the ground, all that was great, especially concerning the Raiders. The Raiders they don't care about guys like it or catching punts. They would run down there back in the 70s and 80s and just plow them over. It didn't even care if they were catching the ball or not. So at the end of the game and at the beginning of the game, you knew what you were in for, and you played accordingly. And I got to tell you, you know, that I would stretch my technique, let's put it that way, of tackling people and catching them off guard and using my helmet, ramming it into their backs and stomachs and things like that. If it was the Raiders, anything goes. You know, there was no rules, regulations. We were at the playground, and it was anything went. And
you knew Atkinson and Tatum were doing it to your guys.
Yes.
So you were going to blast Bolitnikov, or if you could get a shot at Cliff Branch, if you could get to him. So no, I get it. I mean, it's like, you're taking our guys out, we're going to go after your guys.
That was it. Yeah, they called it a game. It wasn't really a game. You know, it was 60 minutes of just a beatdown. And, you know, they did it very well, you know, with they had a coach that was iconic and, you know, never would be forgotten. And John Madden, and just, it was like a circus came to town. You know, you had all these different entertainments, and guys were different sizes, the Stork, you know, all these linebackers that are 6'7". I mean, it was amazing. They just came out and you went, uh-oh, they just let the zoo out, you know, the animals are on the field, and you had to play accordingly. I tell you, and it was survival.
They always said that when Al Davis was running the team, like, he was a size and speed kind of guy. And they said the Raiders were the best looking team off the bus, but that didn't always translate into playing. You know, they had guys 6'9", like their whole line, Matuzak, Philyaw. They used to go for a guy, Dave Rao. They used to go with guys 6'8" and above. but some of those guys couldn't run or even play football. You know what I mean? It was like a goon squad, like the movie Slapshot. You know what I mean? Like they just got guys out there to like enforcers.
It honestly, in some of those games, the score didn't matter. It was how many guys you had left on the field and how many guys you had damaged on the other team, and they went limping off the field and never came back. That was how you kept score. How many guys are left here at the end of this game that are still healthy, that can run and lift and, put their hands over their head? It was very, very intense. And I every time I see the Raiders, I get ready to tighten my chin strap a little bit more.
I'm sorry.
Because
I'm sorry to have that poster over my shoulder. Had I known I was going to give you a flashback, I'm really sorry. I would have taken it down.
Oh no, it's definitely a flashback. And what I meant.
I love it.
Madden, when I was coaching down with the Atlanta Falcons, and I had met him, he was broadcasting at the time. And you know what? I got to say, I really, really, really enjoyed the guys' conversation, and I wish I could have played for him. He's one of those kind of guys that just really reaches out to players and coaches and makes a connection really quickly, and one that you would feel like you'd do anything for this guy.
Yeah, he was a great character too. Like you said, the Raiders were a circus. Like he was always walking around on the field with that big tag that was hanging off his pants, and his hair was going crazy. And, he was just, like you said, it was like part of the act. You know what I mean? He was always just, he was larger than life.
It was amazing. We played out there a couple of times, but each time we played there, Al Davis would come down to your end of the field where you were, practicing. And he started talking to your players. You're on your team. You're thinking, this is the owner of the Raiders. He's down here with the Chicago Bears now, almost like doing interviews. He asked me one time, hey, Doug, how would you like to be a Raider? And I said, well, a little bit difficult to talk about it right now. Can't we pick up this conversation later on with a telephone or something like that? But, I don't know what my coaches were thinking. Here's the owner of the other team over there talking to his team, our team, as we're lining up doing stretches and exercises. But they just did whatever they wanted. They did whatever they wanted, set their own rules, and they still went to a lot of championships. So I give them credit for that.
Yeah, as a little boy, I've been a diehard Raider fan since probably 74 or 75. So, I mean, I've had my ups and downs with them, and I want to burn my memorabilia when they have these shitty seasons, but I hang in there with them.
I love it. Well, so Vic, I got to ask you a question because I know all your books are about the stories and your life experience of what you've accomplished, which I personally, I can't wait to read because, I love true life. I'm selling a amazing mafia story right now, which I got to tell you about, but in a mafia TV series, probably people that you helped to get incarcerated, but they're all out now and they're all old. And we're interviewing all of them and talking about the real stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a TV show, but anyways, I'm super excited about that. So the point is I love that kind of stuff because I love real life. So what's your favorite story that what's your favorite story or memory, humorous one, because I know you like humor, that from your experience?
So what would you like to hear? Mob or I mean, I've got so many stories. You got to kind of narrow the parameter down a little bit. I mean,
well, we got to read all your books. That's for sure.
Okay. All right, I'll tell you a funny story. So it's the early 90s and young guys were going to the bars and meeting girls. And there was a cop from another precinct who in his spare time was an amateur magician, right? So we're at the bar talking to girls and he comes up and he's pulling the flowers out of his wrist and pulling coins behind his ear. And how do you compete with this? Right. So I turned to his old partner who we used to call Cancer because he killed more people than cancer. And I says, would you get him out of here? And he goes, if this guy took his police career as seriously as making balloon animals in the police car, he'd be a one-man crime fighter. A couple of weeks later, they get called on a midnight to a basement apartment, calls for help. They go into the basement of this building. There's 2 apartments. They bang on door number 1. No one answers. They go to bang on door number 2. And the magician stops my old partner because he's lazy. He goes, come on, let's get out of here. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. He goes, no, come on. I'm just going to knock and see. He goes, come on. We made all this noise. It's 12:30 at night. Let's get out of here. Talks my old partner out of knocking on the door. They leave. What they don't realize is behind door number 2, the super of the building was selling coke out of the apartment. Super gets addicted to coke, and now he's not paying his wholesaler. Well, in the drug world, when you don't pay your wholesaler, they don't send nasty notices or cancel your cable. So he knows he's got a problem that they're going to probably try to kill him. So he's not coming to his door. So what they did was, it's an old gypsy trick. They brought an attractive female with them, and they knock on the door. They put the attractive female in front of the peephole. The super goes, "Ooh, found money," opens the door. These 2 Albanian guys and the girl bum rush him in the apartment. And they shut the door. They're pistol whipping him. Where's the money? Where's the drugs? The super of the apartment he has no answers. They shoot him in the head. They roll him up in a carpet. They drag him out and throw him in the furnace of the building. And then they go back into the apartment. So while he's going up like a Puerto Rican fire log, they're ransacking the apartment for valuables when my old partner and the magician are outside. So now they're going to knock on that door, and inside the apartment, the 2 Albanian guys tell the girl, "This is what we're going to do. If those 2 cops knock on that door, let them in and lead them down the apartment towards the kitchen and just start screaming in Yugoslavian. When you get past the threshold of this bedroom, throw yourself on the floor. We'll come out from behind. We'll shoot them in the head. We'll throw them in the furnace, and we'll call it a day," because they had to totally commit because they've already killed 1 guy. Well, what happens is they don't knock on the door and they leave. So a couple of weeks later, the super of the building's family starts looking for this guy. They call the detectives, they get involved, and they see that there was a 911 call to the basement. So they bring in my old partner and this magician, and they says, "Was anything out of order? Like, did you knock on which door and who did you talk to?" And they go, "We knocked on this door. We didn't knock on that door." But my old partner was a sharp cop. He goes, "But the funny thing is, when we were leaving, there was a car parked outside on a fire hydrant, and I gave it a parking ticket. That was the getaway car that was registered to the female." So they bring in the female, and now she starts tap dancing, trying to like distance herself from the homicide, but in for a penny, in for a pound. She gives up the 2 hitmen. They lock all 3 of them up. And then what happens is they have to go back to the building. It's the dead of winter, and shut the heat off and get this guy's skull and bones out of the out of the furnace. So everybody was freezing.
Make this stuff up.
Well, no, it really happened. So that
Okay,
story's called
keep going.
Well, that story's called Last Night a Magician Saved My Life, because had he not talked my old partner out of knocking on that door, they would have gotten killed too.
Wow. That is crazy. I'm sure you have millions of stories like that.
I've got funny, I've got dark. I mean, I've got things that you wouldn't believe that goes on. Like Doug and I were talking about, like the NFL is not what you really think it is. So every year I would get thrown a uniform and go down to Times Square for the ball to drop. And I did that 17 out of 20 years with the NYPD, and everybody thinks it's fun. It's not. You get down there by 2:00 in the afternoon and you're freezing. And those people that you see from above with those camera shots, they're packed in like cattle. There's wooden horses that keep them in those nice, tidy little squares. And there's no place to go to the bathroom because none of the restaurants is going to let anybody use a bathroom unless they've got a reservation. So it's just like Calcutta in there. I mean, it's nasty in there. And then what happens is after the ball drops, you've got all these drunks with all their money and their cell phones and their cameras. And then you get all the hood rats. They come up, they're sober as judges, and they watch. And it's like watching hyenas on the Discovery Channel because, yeah, there's 5,000 cops down there, but you've got over 1 million people. So you can't be everywhere. And they just watch. They'll watch a drunk who's got a brand new cell phone kind of go off one way. They go follow him, and then the guy comes back with a knot on his head. I got hit in the head. They took my cell phone. So Times Square on New Year's Eve is not the place to be, despite what you see on television.
Oh, that's good information to know, because I've always wanted to go there.
Oh, don't do it.
Doug, have you ever been there?
You know what? I've been to New York several times, but not where I was there for 2 or 3 days. It was usually I was there the day, and then like one time I was accused of hitting somebody and kind of knocking them out, and I got fined in the game, so I had to go to New York to interview with the commissioner of the National Football League, Pete Rozelle, and say, why did you do that, Doug? And I said, well, he was on the other team. He was wearing a different colored jersey. I mean, that's the way it was back then. You know, it wasn't, we weren't using weapons, you know, but your elbows and your helmets and your shoulder pads were the weapons. And yeah, you could knock people out, you know, pretty easily. But, you know, it's just funny how, you know, it was like a kangaroo court. I remember going in the commissioner's meeting room and he had like 30 people at this table. I have never seen a table this long. I mean, it went on for like 100 feet. You know, to get 30 people sitting at anything, I mean, you got quite a crowd. And why did I do something? You know, when you get stuck out there on a football field, Vic, or like yourself on the sidewalk in the street at night, listen, you're in survival mode. You know, you do things that are going to get you through to the next morning. And some of them don't look the greatest when it's on camera, like it is on the NFL. But you know what? You're just trying to get to tomorrow. And that's, especially when you're 200 pounds against 250, 300 pounders, you're in survival mode.
I wanted to ask you, I wrote this down so I didn't forget. What was it like to tackle Earl Campbell?
Well, first of all, I didn't tackle him that much. You know, that's not that I didn't try. Everybody, I'll just say this. We played against Earl Campbell several times, and I saw Earl on video before we played them and after literally run over guys and hit them so hard that when they got hit, they were literally knocked out as they were flying to the ground, landing on their back, and Earl would run over top of them. You know, it was like a herd of cattle. He would hit him in the stomach with his helmet, knock him backwards, and then run over top of him like an elephant or something that you would see in some kind of a movie. So I had to pick out a place where it was the most vulnerable for him. You can use your imagination. And I thought, you know, my helmet will fit very nicely in between these two things. And I think that I could defray Earl Campbell from ever wanting to come down to my position again. And I came running up on a run support on one running play that, you know, he did all the time. And I hit him as hard as I could, literally just below the waist. You can use your imagination. And Earl Campbell went out of the game. And so
that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I mean, there are many guys around that could say they knocked Earl Campbell out of the game. Not for long. It was for probably 20 minutes. And he came back on. But he truly was he was like facing death out there on the field. You know, he was so big and powerful, 32-inch thighs.
I know.
And just a no fear. You know, he was an incredible athlete.
Yeah, I think him and Peyton, your old teammate, were the two. I mean, if I was going to draft, put a team on the field, I've never seen anybody play like Campbell or Peyton. Peyton could do anything, and Campbell just was a one-man wrecking crew that would move a pile.
He was like a train on the tracks. You didn't have to worry about him, you know, coming down, doing the hoochie coochie, you know, left, right, all that kind of stuff. No, that was all that stuff you see on television today with the guys running the ball and, you know, fancy dancing. No, Earl Campbell and Walter Payton were about putting their shoulder pads and helmet down and literally running over you, and with power like I've never seen. Walter was on our team, of course. I actually roomed with him for a couple of years because of the alphabetical order thing, Plank and Peyton. But he had incredible determination. You know, that was what makes a player is not so much his physical skills and abilities, it's his determination, his ability to just be able to just go in a certain direction, certain attitude. That, you know, when they hit you, they were going to run you over. They were the train and you were the railroad tracks.
That's incredible.
I love it. I could sit and listen to you guys tell your stories all day long. I think they're amazing. I think they're absolutely incredible. Vic, where do people buy your books? Like, tell us where to buy your books.
So all my books are on Amazon. If you go to the Amazon book section and just type in Vic, V-I-C, Ferrari, like the car, my Amazon author page will come up. They've got great covers. I like to think they're great covers. I use I usually use NYPD police cars in the background just to kind of show, and it shows what it is. Like NYPD law and disorder, you got a police car that's in an accident and a bad guy's slipping out the back door of a car, which does happen. So my books, they have colorful
Show us all your covers. Do you have all your covers there?
Yeah. The NYPD's Flying Circus, Cops, Crime, and Chaos. That's loaded with funny behind the scenes stories. And Grand Theft Auto, the NYPD's Auto Crime Division. That's full of stories about my 10 years in the NYPD's Auto Crime Division. And then I wrote Confessions of a Catholic High School Graduate. You got a picture of a kid in a Catholic high school uniform running out of a confessional. That happened to me. When you confess one sin too many as a little smart ass kid, can lead to a foot chase through an empty church. And I wrote a comedy called Dickheads and Debauchery and Other Ingenious Ways to Die. It's loaded with short stories about the ridiculous things people do to shorten their life expectancy.
Listen, those are some great titles.
I was just going to say, I love it. I love it. All right. So here's the question though. So everybody needs to go and check out Vic Ferrari on Amazon, buy his books because they're going to be hilarious. I'm going to go buy a couple. I'm like the worst reader though. It takes me like months to read. Because when I read, I usually do it at night. And then when I read, it makes me fall asleep. Right. So, but I can probably do like audio because I do the whole audio thing when I'm driving.
I have not done an audiobook yet. I have not had time.
All right. Well, but it doesn't look like those books are that long. So I can read it because it's not that long. But now here's the thing. You're writing your 7th book right now, right? What's that called?
I don't have a title. I struggle with that. The most difficult thing for me to do writing a book is the title and then writing the book jacket, what it's about and bullet points, why people would pick this book up and be interested in it. Don't have a title yet, but all my books, there's no beginning, middle, or end. So you're not going to get that invested in it. They're just short stories. There's a chapter of characters in a precinct and boom, there's 5 or 6 stories. Or then there'll be a chapter crossing over to the dark side that deals with police corruption and guys that I saw go bad. So my books they're just loaded with short stories.
I love that. You know what? I think that's the best way to read. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about earlier before we got on the podcast, people's attention span, an article I just read is 8.5 seconds. So I think short stories are great. Well, let's do this. Let's say this. So once you have a title and you finish, you don't have to be finished, but let's have you back on so you can talk about your 7th book. You can talk about your 7th book with Doug and I.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because Doug and I would love that.
Oh yeah. And if you guys have questions or, about police work or what goes on behind the scenes, please reach out at any time.
I know. I'm thinking I'd like to have you over for Christmas so you can tell stories for an hour.
Rent a cop.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Vic. Seriously, thank you. We appreciate it.
Are you kidding? This has been great for me. I really appreciate it. It was great meeting you, Megan, and you, Doug, as well.
Yeah, no, we appreciate your time. And I'm really excited. I'm going to get some of those books because, I have a 17, 18, and 19-year-old, and I think they'll totally have it be fun to read some of those things also. So we'll do that.
Well, thank you.
Vic, both of us wore uniforms. And so there's something to go with that. And, it's always, you always have pride with the people you're with, whether we had a good team or not. I always felt proud to be a Chicago Bear running onto the field with the people that I was with. I mean, they were not maybe the best team in the National Football League, but we had a bunch of characters just like you meet every single day. And, stories for life, that's why, you wrote 7 books. I think we could all write 20 books at least.
Oh, I think you should. Oh, I'd pick your book up in a second because there's a lot of people my age that grew up watching guys like you. And we were fascinated with this. I mean, your whole career, Ohio State, Woody Hayes, playing for the Bears. That's stuff people would be interested in, what goes on the sidelines. No one's ever done that yet. I think you should.
I agree. I keep telling Doug that. I keep telling him. I'll keep on him. Trust me. I'll keep.
All right, I'll do it.
I'm going to keep on him. That's how the whole podcast started, Vic, was because I had the blessing of being able to sit and talk with Doug. And I'm like, dude, your stories are amazing. And he's like, how can we work together? That's how our podcast started, because I was like, people need to hear these stories. Your stories are incredible. And that's how it all started. But yeah, we're going to do more. We're going to do more and more and more and more and more.
Doug, if you're a good storyteller, and you are, just the way we were talking about the Raiders and they would be in a circus. If you can do that, which you can write a book. It's that simple. If you're a storyteller, because it's up here to come out here, you can do it. Just don't write in chronological order. It'll frustrate the hell out of you. I'm not that talented to write in chronological order. That's why my books don't have a beginning, middle, or end. So I encourage you, though. I think you should do it, because I think you'd sell a lot of books.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Vic. I agree. All right. Well, so everybody go check out Amazon, Vic Ferrari. He doesn't own Ferrari, but he is a Ferrari. So check him out. And all of us, as I always tell you guys, all of our viewers, thank you. And thank you. I just got an email that 1,500 downloads happened on our podcast, Doug. Did you know that? 1,500 people downloaded our podcast. So you know what? Thank you guys. We appreciate it. And we will continue to put out amazing content. And as always, like I always tell you guys, if you have a question for myself or Doug, always email me at m@megaz.com or just text me at 424-288-1364 and we'll answer your questions. Doug and I are urgent people. When you email us, people will tell you we respond within 24 hours. So Vic, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you. And I look forward to having you back when you get that 7th concept going on, so we can help share the word, because your stories are hilarious.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Doug. And if I don't talk to you before then, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure. Honestly, I really, really enjoyed every one of your stories.
I was looking forward to this interview. I'm telling you, I do 5 or 10 a week, and I saw your name and her name. I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be fun. I was looking forward to this.
Well, we're honored to have you. We're honored to have you. And thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we will talk to you before Christmas. I guarantee it.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Doug, listen, again, this was really a big deal to me to meet you. I mean, this is so cool. If you got any questions or anything, I'll give you my email address.
Yes, let's definitely keep in touch.
You guys are all CC'd, just for the record. You're all CC'd. Everybody's together. I keep everybody together.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'll send you an email. And like I said, this is so great. I mean, just hearing the behind the scenes stuff about Madden and stuff, it made my week. I really appreciate it. Like, I am a huge fan of the NFL. I don't leave my house on Sundays. I got the NFL Sunday ticket. You know what I mean? I watch old games. You know what I mean? It's like, I love the history of the NFL. And it's so funny when you said that you got called out. Would you go to Madison Avenue that time when they sent you to the NFL offices?
Yes, that was it. Yeah, in a tall building. I don't know, like the 50th floor. Like I said, I went in there and there was 30 guys sitting at the table, all looking at me like, what did I do? I mean, it was just a penalty. And in fact, there wasn't a penalty. I didn't even have a penalty on the play, yet they were trying to fine me. How about that?
No, Doug, I love your line. And it's so classic and it's so Doug. He was wearing the other color.
Yeah.
I love that line.
I get it. Perfect. Like he was saying, like you got to do everything you can to survive sometimes, and people don't understand that. It's I've been in a couple of things where it's like I tell the story. One time, me and my old partner pulled over a guy. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and you could tell the guy was out all night clubbing. Like he was wearing like a silk shirt. He could smell the cologne. Right? He's all coked up, and pulled him over for a taillight. So I'm talking to the guy and he keeps messing around with his waist. And I said, you know what? Step out of the car for a second. I'm going to show you the taillight out. No big deal, because I'm trying to downplay it. I think he's got a gun, but I'm trying to downplay it. And I don't want him to know that I know that he's got a gun, right? He gets out of the car and he starts messing around with that trench coat. And I went for it and I dove into his pants. And now I grab a 9mm in his pants, right? He grabs my hands. And we're just looking at each other, and now we're just ramming I'm trying to headbutt him. My partner comes running around the car, and I'm like, shoot him. And he goes, are you sure? I go, shoot him. He's got a gun. Shoot this motherfucker. And to my partner's credit, he just cracked him. And when he hit him, the guy's body went limp for a second and the gun popped up.
Wow.
And I mean, he would have shot me. There wouldn't have been no time for me to reach for my gun, right? Because I had his gun. So, I mean, things happen, you know, in the street. It just jumps off so quickly that if I'm glad, I'm guessing I do process information quickly, and I was always involved in something. So, I mean, I'm very lucky for the amount of things I've been involved in. Actually, the guy I was working with, he's on Netflix right now. He became a homicide detective for like 20 something years. What is that Netflix show called? The Times Square Killer on Netflix. He wasn't involved in that case, but as a homicide detective, Netflix grabbed him to like narrate it. He met the son of Sam in prison. You know who the son of Sam is, right? The guy that was going.
Absolutely.
So my old partner goes up to Sullivan Correctional Facility, and they're going to pull a guy out of jail who already did a homicide, serving time for a homicide, but they're going to pull him out of jail, bring him back to the Bronx and charge him with another homicide, right? So while the guy they're going to bring back down to the Bronx is getting processed, the warden's giving him a tour of Sullivan County Correctional. And my old partner goes, the son of Sam housed here? And he goes, yeah. And he keeps giving him the tour. So my partner brings it up again and he goes, all right, I think I know what you want to see. Come on. So he walks them into the son of Sam's jail cell, right? And my partner goes, you're not going to believe this, but he had like fan mail, like 5 feet high. Like, who the fuck is writing this guy, right? He's got like fan mail 5 feet high, right? He says everything in his cell is symmetrical, like the books, his shoes and everything, right? He goes, I'm just looking around in awe, right? He says, all of a sudden, standing outside the cell is David Berkowitz, like with those wild eyes. He goes, holy shit. So David Berkowitz is having a conniption why the warden and 2 cops are in his jail cell, right? So he's like, warden, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, David, it's fine. It's fine. This is Detective Ryman. This is Detective Keneally. They're from Bronx Homicide. They just wanted to see your cell. And he said, Berkowitz went from being like this nervous wreck, like he flicked the switch. He goes, well, you guys are a little young to be down here for anything I did up in the Bronx. He goes, that's all been taken care of. He goes, it was eerie. So, I mean, you get to see and hear things. I saw his gun. One time I had a large seizure of narcotics, and on the 6th floor of the police academy, on one side you had the lab, the other side you had the ballistics section. So I had a couple of kilo arrest, and I was dropping off the drugs. And while I'm waiting for the elevator, there's like this display case in the hallway that like something like your dad would make or a Scoutmaster. Like it wasn't professionally done. And behind plexiglass, there's like a Thompson machine gun, and there's all this wild stuff. And then I'm looking, and they've got David Berkowitz's gun behind the glass. And then next to it is the gun that killed John Lennon. I'm like, who even knew this shit was up here? Like, it was just like stuff you would never think of that's just kind of laying around in New York City, you know, history, you know, police history.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I was very lucky. I mean, I'm one of the few people I think in life that got the job I wanted, went to the unit I wanted, and now I get to live vicariously through me, talking about my books and what I did for a living. You know, it's kind of turned into a second career.
Well, I'm excited and very honored to call you a friend, and we'll continue to visit with you and talk with you because we can do some fun stuff together, all 3 of us.
Oh, listen, anytime you guys want, reach out. You know, I mean,
I'm not doing anything but writing
books in Florida. You know what I mean? I'd love to.
All right. Well, you have a spectacular day. And thank you for being on Sports and Shopping with Doug Plank and Megan. And we will be in touch with you.
All right, guys. Thank you again. I appreciate it. Take care, Doug.
Thank you.
Bye, Megan.
Thanks.
Bye. See you later.